Good morning and welcome to Proverbs, a letter to my son. This morning we're going to look at lesson 5 and we'll see what happens if we reject wisdom. Today we're going to look at the last paragraph of Proverbs chapter 1. Now if you'll remember, in Proverbs 1 verse 7, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." So we're given two choices in life. One is to choose the fear of the Lord and follow God's way and find the blessings and the good things that come. And the other choice is to be a fool and pursue the world, demand my way, and experience the hurts and losses that result. Everyone makes this choice, whether consciously or unconsciously, but we need to choose the fear of the Lord. Today, we're going to see what happens if we reject wisdom. And we'll go to Proverbs chapter 1, verses 20 through 33. Now, if you haven't done it yet, please go to my website, jlsparaphrase.org, and download the file that is Reject Wisdom. And have that paper in front of you. Download and print it, and have it in front of you as we proceed through here. And it will make understanding this content much, much more easy. And I think it'll make good sense for you. So, if you have downloaded the page, let's go to Proverbs chapter 1, verses 20 through 33. Now, this section is made up of 4 sections. The first one is where wisdom calls. We're looking at verses 20 to 21. Then we'll look at who wisdom calls, and we'll see that in verse 22. Then we'll see what wisdom offers. Now you see on your chart there is 2 red boxes and a red line, and those are the blessings that come when wisdom offers herself to you and you choose wisdom. But if you don't choose wisdom, then point 4 is what happens if you reject wisdom's call, and we'll see how people can do this. This morning we'll start into it. Be sure to have your paper in your lap or on your desk and be referring to it as we go through now. All right, let's look at wisdom's call. Where wisdom calls. Look at your sheet. You'll see it on your sheet. He says, "Wisdom crieth without." Where? Outside the city. She uttereth her voice in the streets. So she's out there calling people to her. She crieth in the chief places of the concourse, all the major intersections that people would frequent. And the openings of the gate, that's where people come into the city, and she uttereth her words. Every place that people tend to be, wisdom offers herself, says, "Come to me. I'm there. I'm available if you'll seek me." So it's not hard to find. We don't have to do some super important thing. We just have to choose her. Now, who does wisdom call? Look in your sheet. "How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity?" So these simple ones, let's call them naive. And we've discussed naive before. Someone who seldom, if ever, considers the consequences of their choices in life. And then they make bad choices and have to live with them. So they love things simple. They don't want anything to do with self-discipline or logic. If it feels good, do it. If it looks like fun, we'll do it. That's the simple one, or naive. And then there are the scorners, and they delight in running people down. They belittle God, the Bible, and anyone who wants to live godly. And they just don't have any use for anything spiritual. And then there are the fools. We talked about fools earlier in lesson 3, and they hate knowledge. Remember, they said they hate wisdom and knowledge, the very things we are encouraged to gain. But these are the folks that wisdom calls. Wisdom's not calling the wise to her. They're already engaged with wisdom. She wants these people that have no part in her right now, hoping that they will change their mind and join her. Now, what does wisdom offer? I think this is pretty. But look on your sheet, and you'll see in the block in red at verse 23 that it says, turn to my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my Spirit upon you. So what is that offering? Well, she's offering the power to live a good and godly life. And then she says, I will make my words known unto you. So what's she saying there? I'll give you the power to learn and understand the truth. So these are the blessings that come from those who choose wisdom and don't reject it. Now follow the red line to the right and down to the bottom and look at verse 33, and you'll see the next verse. But whosoever hearkeneth unto me shall what? Dwell safely. So there's real security, and shall be quiet from the fear of evil. So there's the peace of mind, wonderful peace of mind. Now understand, these blessings are only for those who choose wisdom, who choose to follow wisdom and follow good advice and good logic. But for people that don't, the situation's a little different. Let's look at it here. Here we go. Now I have shifted the text right and left to group thoughts, but as we finish building the chart, you'll be able to read left to right, top to bottom, and it will read exactly as it will read in your Bible. So those who have rejected wisdom, or are in the process of rejecting wisdom, look what Solomon says will happen. Look on your screen. Wisdom has called. He stretched out her hand. And at times people say, go take a hike. But you refused. No man regarded. Said it not my counsel. Would none of my reproof. I don't want anything to do with what you're offering. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to choose my own way. I think I'm right, and I'm going to pursue it. So for those who say, I'm not going to follow wise counsel, what happens? Well, calamity comes, fear, destruction, distress, anguish. They do something, and the results are not good. They've made their choice, and all of a sudden, they're in trouble. Now, we'll illustrate that in a few minutes. When that point comes, what does wisdom do? Wisdom stands back and says, okay, dummy, you made your choice, now you got to live with it. And people are like, wisdom should answer when I call. Not if you tell wisdom to go take a hike. Well, what happens after that? Well, these people are in trouble. They want a way out, and they can't find a way out at all. They're stuck. So what do? They go to the foxhole prayer. Then they shall call upon me, wisdom. They will seek me diligently. Oh, Lord, help me out of this mess. I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, what does wisdom do then? Well, wisdom says, I'm not going to answer you. You won't find me. Why? Well, let's look at an illustration in the Old Testament that gives a good idea of what's going on. Let's read together. Thus spake the Lord. This is Zechariah 7, verses 9 to 13. Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, execute true judgment and show mercy and compassion to every man his brother. Now he's talking to the Jews now. And oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, the stranger, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine evil against your neighbor in your heart. But they refused to hearken, and pulled away the shoulder, and stopped their ears, and that they should not hear. Yea, they made their hearts as adamant stone, lest they should hear the law, and the words which the Lord of hosts has sent in his spirit by the former prophets. Therefore came great wrath from the Lord of hosts. Now follow what's happening in verse 13. Therefore it came to pass that as he, the Lord, cried to them, they would not hear. So they cried, and I, the Lord, would not hear, saith the Lord of hosts. So there's the principle. If you tell God to go take a hike, if you tell wisdom to go take a hike, when you need the help badly, God's going to say, you go take a hike. You didn't want me to help you? No way. So these people don't get an answer from wisdom. Why? Look at the lower right block. For they hated knowledge, They did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel, and they despised my reproof. So now they're not getting any help. They're going to be stuck with what they have. So look at the end. Therefore, or so, they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. In other words, I'm going to have to live with a mess that I made for myself. Now you might be saying, that's fine. Ungodly people, worldly people will do this. But folks, believers can do it too, and often do. Now we're talking about losing salvation or anything that serious, but we're talking about making bad choices when information to make the good choices out there. Before we move on to an example, I want to show you a flow chart of what we just looked at. The spirit of power and knowledge and the security and peace of mind in green are the same as the verses in red boxes on your sheet, the one that's attached with the red line going down the side. So those are the blessings for those that choose wisdom. The boxes in the blue are wisdom's call and wisdom's response. The boxes in the yellow refer to the choices that someone makes regarding wisdom. Notice they refuse. Disaster comes. They make their foxhole prayers, and then they say, I'm going to have to live with what I've got. Notice the green arrows going from the right to left. I firmly believe that if someone truly, genuinely repents, they might find help from the Lord. Don't count on it, though, because the Lord's responded that way to his own people. So there's a flow chart of that. Now, let's look at the root cause. Look on your sheet, down there at the bottom at verse 32. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. So the turning away of the, and I like to use the word naive, they've turned their back on good, sound logic. If it feels good, fine. If I like it, fine, I'm going that way. So they've abandoned good and healthy logic. And the fools now are going their way, they're happy with what they have, and they're not going to let anybody tell them what to do because they think they're right all the time. Well, guess what? They're not. Let's look at an example of this kind of thing. You say, well, it wouldn't happen to me. Well, let's wait a minute. Let's examine what we're getting ready to show you here and see if maybe you do the same thing. Maybe I do the same thing from time to time. Let's look at an example of someone who wants to send their child to an Ivy League school when they have been warned, send your child to a school where biblical lifestyles and a biblical worldview are taught. And this person says, nope, I want them to go to this Ivy League school. Now, that school may indeed have instructors that want to destroy the child's faith. But what does the person making the choice say? I'm not going to do what you tell me. Now, I'm mimicking Scripture here, line for line. I'm not going to do that. I know better. That's useless counsel. I don't need that. And I don't want any part of your advice. I'm going to go my way, and I'm going to make the choice. So they send their kid to this Ivy League school, and in a year or two, the kid comes back and says, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in the Bible. Then what? The person's saying, oh no, my child has rejected the Bible. I'm afraid I've lost him. I'm beside myself. I don't know what to do. This is an absolute disaster. I've made myself sick with grief. I know what I'll do. No, I don't know what to do. But what does wisdom say? Tough luck, Charlie. You made a stupid mistake. Not good, but you made your own choice. Now the person says, I know what I'll do. I'll pray and ask God. I'll pour all of my energies into praying that the Lord will fix this mess. And guess what? Wisdom says, go take a hike. I'm not going to help you now. You didn't want me. You didn't want my advice. And why did wisdom say that? Because the person will have to admit, why have I been so stupid? Why didn't I choose the fear of the Lord? I was stupid to reject wisdom's counsel. My pride drove me to reject sound counsel, and now I have to live with the mess that I made, and I'm so full of regrets. So, this is a real life situation, and I know of parents who've done this, and they have regretted it for the rest of their life. And what did they do? They rejected wisdom. Now, there's wisdom in the scriptures, and it will teach us what we should and should not do, if we're willing to listen to it. Now, you might say, well, okay, that's one situation, but what other areas might I reject wisdom? Have you seen the young fellow that says, I love this girl, I want to marry her, and the advice is, don't marry an unsaved woman. Oh, but I love her, and it's going to work out fine. And before long, it either ends in disaster or divorce. But they totally reject sound wisdom. And this is people who claim to love the Lord now. What else? Going so deeply into debt that you can't see your way out. It's so easy to go into debt. It's so hard to come back out. And we're advised to live debt-free. We don't want to owe anyone anything because we become their slave. So there's another opportunity. Looking at pornography. Once you look at pornography, you'll never get it out of your mind completely. And figures might come back years later. Plus, your wife might say, when did I stop being enough for him? So there's another opportunity of rejecting wisdom. And then pursuing riches. Ever watch the life of someone who made riches their driving force in life? Many of them lose their kids, they lose their wife, they lose the whole family, and they end up in just shipwrecked because the almighty dollar has taken control of their life. And it doesn't end pretty. It really doesn't. Okay, we already talked about sending my child to a non-Christian school, so we won't dwell there. And then investing in what sounds too good to be true. Solomon gives advice in Ecclesiastes as to how to invest. Put it in 7 or 8 places, because you don't know how well one is going to do and how another is not going to do well. But I got a friend that chose to put his money in a place that sounded too good, and he lost a good portion of his money when he found out that the guy was not genuine. So folks, these are ways that we can reject wisdom. Now, why is this section here? In Proverbs chapter 1, paragraph 1, verses 1 to 6, Solomon teaches the 4 steps to learning and living the book of Proverbs. Good steps. To know what the text says well enough to do it, to understand why it was given, to learn what the text means, to find out how it's going to work out in my life, to receive it and actually practice it, and to give help to those who need to learn what we learn. In verse 7, we learn the fear of the Lord, the attitude we must acquire and maintain if we are to be successful in living the 4 steps. And then in paragraph 3, verses 8 to 19, we see the friends we must reject if we are to maintain a biblical fear of the Lord. If we join them in their sin, we can't say that we have a biblical fear of the Lord, and then we can't be successful at the 4 steps. And then today, we looked at verses 20 through 35. What happens if we reject wisdom? Of course, if we reject wisdom, then we don't have the fear of the Lord, and we're not going to be successful in these steps. So you see how they build on each other. In the next lesson, in lesson 6 now, we will look at chapter 2 to find out how to go about finding a biblical fear of the Lord. And I hope you'll join me there. I look forward to it. I'll see you then. Thank you.